The 8th generation Nissan Skyline arrived in '89 just as the Japanese economic bubble began to waver. But it was still a time of great optimism, and if you were a Nissan fan, there was no better proof than the return of the GTR. After a decade and a half since the extremely rare Camry was felled by the fuel crisis, the three most iconic letters in Japanese performance were back. 27 years later, we can look back at the birth of a legend and marvel at how the EBN R32 chassis Skyline GTR tore a hole for itself in history, the right car at the right time. It was a technological powerhouse, an utterly dominant force on the racing circuit, and at the same time relatively common. Made from '89 to '94, nearly 44,000 R32 GTRs were sold, some 15% of all Skyline production. The most common way to buy a GTR is to import one from Japan. Even though the Japanese government makes owning an older vehicle difficult, the GTR's large fan base means that well-preserved examples still pass through the auctions often. Pristine models are a rarity, so expect to dig deep into your pocket if you're looking for an extremely clean example. Buying a car from a Japanese auction is a gamble, not least due to the ability for something to get lost in translation. You can reduce your exposure by finding a reputable importer in your area and work with them to find a car that suits your budget. There may be something to be found locally, as the R32 has been importable since late '14. A few specialists even import R32s and stock them in inventory. One other possibility that's often overlooked is the Canadian market. They don't have these strange 15-year market exemption. What to look for the R32 is relatively straightforward. Early cars are slightly lighter, thanks to the addition of crash protection bars in the later models. Lion's share of R32s are roughly physically the same. Considering this purchase with an eye to collectability, note that there are a few rare special models. The Nismo variant is very rare, with just 500 produced for public. If a genuine example, 30 kilograms lighter than the standard car, thanks to a lack of ABS, air conditioning, and rear wiper. They come in gunmetal gray only, and they're also considerably more expensive than a normal GTR. Rarer still is the N1 version, of which 228 were made. These were all white and have a few mechanical advantages over the regular R32, including a slightly stronger block and more durable steel turbine wheels in the turbos. The V-Spec and V-Spec 2, these were made to celebrate the R32's domination in Group A racing. Starting in spring of '93, the V-Spec offered better brakes and larger wheels and tires, along with a few other modifications. Around 3,000 were produced, split pretty much evenly between the two generations. What to avoid? We're talking quarter-century-old cars here, and that means all the usual Japanese car red flags apply. Common sense would dictate that you'd check for rust anyway, but to be specific, look for areas located around the inner rear fenders and below the rear window. You should also attempt to remove the rear spats and check for hidden rust there, as debris tends to accumulate and trap water, equaling more rust. Jacking points are to be taken seriously. If jacked improperly, these can be easily bent and open the door for rust starting behind the side skirts. Real carelessness with a floor jack can result in mild bending of the frame. Since they are at least 25 years old, most of its suspension components may be worn. If you're looking at a fresh set of coilovers, great, but all the rubber bushings throughout the suspension may be starting to become brittle or decayed. Further, torn CV axle boots, especially up front, can be an annoying expense. Mechanically speaking, the GTR is very robust, which directly contributed to its winning racing career. The RB26 2.6-liter straight-six is a very strong engine, capable of holding 5 to 600 horsepower, and the 5-speed transmission can similarly hold big power from a modified car. That said, oiling can be an issue for the former, as the early cars have narrow drive oil pumps. Bounce off the rev limiter a few times, and you can break them. The factory oil pressure gauge are not to be trusted. Coil packs can get cooked as power levels and temperatures rise. All the usual old turbo car crap should be examined, including checking for boost leaks and a compression test if possible. The turbochargers use ceramic wheels for lightness, but if the car you're looking at has had the boost cranked up, it's entirely possible these will crack and explode. A naturally aspirated Hakkasuka GTR is still respectable. Big grip and big power can pay toll on transmission, but the GTR's 5-speed is pretty stout. The chance of finding a completely unmodified R32 GTR is basically zilch. Not only is the Skyline a central figure in Japanese tuner culture, it's as if Nissan intended every single one to be altered as soon as it left the factory. Maintenance. But don't be fooled into thinking that a 30 to 40,000 mile one is automatically gold. Just because it's low doesn't mean that all regular maintenance has been performed. The most annoying parts to replace are minor trim pieces like window molding. Thanks for watching this quick video, guys. Hope you got real value from this. Do share it with your friends who might be looking to get one soon. Have a great day.